Liquor store employees of Reddit. What is the craziest instance of underage kids trying to get booze you've ever encountered? I used to work at a bar. A girl came in and gave me an id. I asked if it was hers. She said yes. What she didn't realize is that the purse she stole the day before, and the id she was now using, belonged to one of the other bartenders. Calling her over to look at this was a satisfaction I haven't felt before or since. That sounds satisfying. At the gas station I worked at, this kid walks in. No way he's more than 16. Heads straight to the beer cooler as my co-workers and I stare incredulously. He grabs a 12-pack and as he's approaching the counter, I ask, "Can I see your id?" He looks me in the eye, says nope, drops a $20 on the counter and walks out. We weren't sure what to do after that, because he didn't exactly steal anything, but we also couldn't just accept the money, because that would be selling to a minor. I left it for my boss to figure out. Ballsy and cool as a cucumber. I like this kid. I had a guy come in to try to buy booze with an absolutely terrible fake tattoo. Tattoos and alcohol have the same age restrictions here. I'm guessing he thought that if he had massive tribal tattoos down his arm we would just assume that he was old enough. He'd clearly done them with a felt tip pen, but it was a hot day so the sweat was making them drip down his arm. I think your tattoo is dripping. Two guys tried to buy beer. I asked them for it. They legit gave me their actual IDs. Like a vertical id that had their dog, clearly making them under 18. When I told them no, they were like, "Really man? Can't you just be cool?" Like their whole strategy was to hope that the clerk would just be a cool guy. Hey, at least they were honest. I did this when drunk to get in a bar once, but I told the bouncer before handing him my id since drunk that my 21st birthday was only like 2 weeks away. He said thanks for your honesty and let me in. It was a crowning achievement. Here's an opposite one. I carded a guy once because I thought he was underage. He laughed this dejected laugh and gave me his id, which was legit after careful inspection. He was about 10 years older than me, a living breathing man child. I worked at a liquor and beer place adjacent to a grocery store. Lots of regulars and people from the neighborhood. For several weeks I had been serving this one guy. Pleasant, polite, early 20s, 6 feet 4 inches, maybe 260 pounds. One day after he left, this older dude who was in line came up to the counter and said, "You know that kid is only 16. Right?" I couldn't believe it. Apparently he rotates from store to store until he gets caught. Sure enough, next time he came in I asked for it. He just said "Goddamn it" and stormed out of the store. I used to work at a store similar to a Walmart and the rule was to ask anyone who looked younger than 44 an id. Not really crazy, but he came to the counter with a bottle of something. I asked him for it. His reply was something like, "Is this how you treat all your customers?" in some kind of tone like it was insulting to ask for it. I said yes. We both kind of stood there for a few moments and he asked if I wasn't going to sell him anything. Not without id. And then he walked out. So here's the thing. In Texas, if you get caught selling to a minor, you are personally liable for the sale. That means you get a criminal charge and a fine to pay. In addition to that, the store you work at can also receive a much larger fine or lose their license. There is no definitively legal form of id and it's up to the individual making a sale to determine not only if the id is legal, but also if the id is legitimate. To put it another way, the best way to discourage selling to minors is to take a minimum wage employee and make him responsible for it at the threat of $2,000, unemployment, and incarceration. Meanwhile, it's not illegal to attempt to purchase while underage. So the TABC, Texas Alcoholic Beverages Beverage Commission, likes to run stings. They'll get a person under the age of 21, usually the child of a cop, to attempt a purchase of an alcoholic beverage. In their defense, the child is usually very young, like 12, though they occasionally love to use a 20-year-old with gray hair. Well, one day I'm working and get a phone call from a neighboring store down the road. They warn me they had a sting come through, so be aware. A few minutes later, this like 10-year-old kid who can't see over the counter comes up and tries to make a purchase. Nah dude, gotta be 21. Kid leaves. Co-worker and I look at each other and are like, yeah, got him. Nobody has their lives ruined today. Woo. And here's where it goes crazy. The cop in charge of the sting was in line behind the kid, and he loses his crap. He's in my face with his badge screaming at me and threatening to arrest me, demanding I tell him who tipped me off to the sting, saying it's illegal to refuse to answer questions, and just generally making a huge scene in my store. Meanwhile his kid is just standing alone outside. I used to look quite young for my age in my late teens, early 20s, so quite often when I went to buy alcohol, back then it was 16 for beer and wine, 18 for everything stronger, but now it's 18 for any alcohol. I was told that they wouldn't sell to me because I was too young. Most times people would accept my ID or passport. Every now and then there was some back and forth before they eventually accepted. One person said he'd call the police. I told him to do it. I could wait. I wasn't doing anything wrong. Thankfully when I started growing some facial hair this all stopped quite quickly. When I worked at Publix they would do stings at other locations to ensure compliance, and would always use underage employees, that is, me, to do it. The problem was I had never had alcohol and also was 5'9", 120 pounds, so when I awkwardly walked up to the counter to try and purchase Jack Daniels, the clerk and another customer saw me, looked at each other, and just started laughing their asses off. I was too embarrassed to even try to convince him and walked out of there dejected. They never asked me to go on a sting again. That's adorably sad. I was working behind a bar at a theme park. A kid who looked about 13 walked up to the bar and asked me for a beer. Of course, I asked him for it. His response was I left it in my car with my wife. Couldn't serve him, but could fault him for trying. YTF would somebody leave their wife in the car while they go to the amusement park? LOL, nice try, but next time at least have a story that makes sense. Guy comes in, says he forgot his ID, but he's 25 and couldn't you just give me a break? I come in here all the time. I was in here like 2 days ago. Cashier keeps saying no, sorry, etc. And guy keeps getting more desperate. Guy eventually goes, dude, I've been coming here for 10 years. To which the cashier just goes, didn't you say you were 25? Got 'em. I worked overnight at a gas station. Kid rolled in around 2 AM with what looked like a legit ID for being 21, but dude looked like a child. Also saw a cop car parked on the other end of the store when I went to check if it was a sting. I told the kid we can't sell alcohol past 2 AM. Ended up screaming at me saying it's only 5 minutes past. Truth be told it was just a cover to keep from telling him I wasn't going to let him buy it here. Me, do you have it? Him, hands it over. Me, this says you're 17. Him, I must have picked up my brother's ID. Me, no, it has your face on it. Him, we're twins. Me, twins are usually the same age. He left quickly after that. I was a junior high teacher and worked at a liquor store in the evenings. A student came in while I was there. He took one look at me and turned around and left with a muttered frick. It was all over the school the next day and I wasn't the one who told. When I was working the door at a bar, as mentioned in a comment above, I also taught at a high school. One night I was at the bar just hanging out, and one of our students came in with a horribly forged ID, like 5 feet away from where I was sitting. The next time I saw him at school he had such an expression on his face. He was really glad when I told him I wasn't going to get him in trouble. I worked in a liquor store for a few months back in 2001-2002. At New Year's Eve, kid comes through with an out-of-state ID, trying to buy a bottle of hooch. I look at it and tell him he's not old enough. He replied, "Oh, that must be my twin brother's license. He didn't get the booze. Here's my real license." I worked at a store where the liquor closet was in back and you had to be 21 to go down the hallway to it. I check this one kid's ID and it's obviously fake. I confiscate it and he's like, whatever, douche. Proceeds to walk back into the liquor closet, grab a fifth of crappy vodka, and place it in the counter, then demand I sell it to him. My co-worker and I were dying laughing at him. On my 21st birthday, I was waiting in line to buy a drink at a liquor stand at a festival. Extremely young girl in front of me tried to buy a Mike's Harder lemonade. The bartender took her ID, laughed, and proceeded to ask the girl what her zodiac sign was. The girl just stared at her dumbfounded and walked away to cry to her other friends who were also clearly under 16 years old. I work at a bottle store in Australia. Not long ago we had a bunch of kids about 13-15 who come in and start stealing bottles of spirits. We had a security guard at the time who was about 6'3" and 150 kilograms. These kids were swearing at him and running in like they wanted to fight. Crazy lil bastards they were. Crazy lil bastards they were. Sober crazy is its own thing. About 10 years ago I worked in a local supermarket. At that time in my country you could buy beer and wine at age 16. The same age you can drive a low speed scooter with a helmet. So this group of kids came in every weekend to buy beer and wine with their helmets in hand. Always assumed they were old enough. One night the local cop was in line behind them, off duty. I decided to ask for their ID this time. Turns out they were 14-15 years, so yeah, no beer for them. When it's his turn, cop asks me if they come in often. I tell him they try every weekend. Next weekend the cop waits for them around the corner, busting them for underage drinking, drunk driving and driving without a license. 5 years ago, I forgot my purse in my car, but it was empty in the supermarket. And we were on self-checkout, so my boyfriend went to get it for me. Self-checkout man and security guard asked if I was okay. Told them about the purse in my car and they laughed at me. I asked what was up and got told I was too young to drive. I was 25. Legal driving age is 17. WTF. Worked at a liquor store, but this was a case of underage cigarettes, not booze. 17-year-old kid comes in at 7 p.m. Next day is his 18th birthday, which I knew because I checked his ID before selling him a pack. I used to try to buy smokes at 17, so I knew the deal and I wasn't mean. I just laughed and said, sorry man, I'll be more than happy to sell you a pack tomorrow. Happy birthday in advance. Oh, and this kid legit cussed me out for 10 minutes straight. Instead of coming in the next day, he got 86'd from the only liquor store in town by the owner who was there at the time. I quit working there shortly after, so not sure if the kid was still 86'd by his 21st. Worked at a beer store bar a few years back. Two kids come in, look to be in their 20s. I wasn't behind the bar, so I'm only going on what was told to me, and sit at the bar. They call the bartender over and order, and she asks for IDs, which they present. She immediately sees something's weird about the card and calls over our boss, the owner, who takes a look and is like, "Yo, that's pretty fake." Before they can even look up, these two dart down the back hallway towards the private dining room and our storage warehouse. I see my boss, another bartender, and the store manager go running after them, and I go through the door on my side of the building, hoping to either cut them off or at least keep them from getting out through the warehouse. Eventually, they try to hide in an empty dining room, while the owner calls the cops and negotiates with them through the door. So eventually the cops come and agree to take them out the back door, not through the restaurant area. While waking through the lot, the one butthole had the balls to say, "Oh, that's my car over there, officer," like he's gonna just drive home. The cop responds, "Oh yeah? Well, mine's just a little farther up, so let's take that one." As far as I know, that fake ID is still tacked behind the bar like a hunting trophy. Not a liquor store worker, but when I was 18, I had these 10-year-olds ask me to go and buy them any flagon of premix alcohol. I took their $10 and went and bought them the cheapest cola in store, which looked like a flagon of premix, and kept the change. Flagon. Braith. There's not a sucker in Skyrim dumb enough to buy you booze. Worked at a liquor store right outside of the university I was attending. Had a dude come in, had to be like 18-19. He comes up and gives me the ID of a guy I grew up with. I just started laughing. Worked at a gas station convenience store in college. I loved IDing cops in uniform. They'd point at their badge and I'd say it doesn't look real to me. The state guys and sheriffs were cool, didn't hassle them, but the local idiots were douchebags. I wasn't an employee, but when I was in school the local liquor store had a wall of shame where they'd display confiscated fakes. One was a picture of a driver's license glued to a Blockbuster card, and this was the 90s before widespread digital photography, so it was literally a photograph of a driver's license, like a film and darkroom photograph. There's a liquor store in a suburb of the city near me with a huge wall of shame. I think it might be 2 or 3 cards thick. This suburb sells beer until midnight, while the surrounding communities shut down to go sales at 9. So it's common for there to be a line of people 20 deep at 11 PM. It's also a Big 10 town, so plenty of college kids looking for booze in addition to the local under 21ers. Worked at a discount store at 18. We didn't sell hard liquor and the strongest alcohol was maybe 25%, but had certain drinks and only certain people bought them. In the UK we have a strong challenge 25 policy and store in challenge 21 in pubs. 4-pack of 25% ABV shots for 99p. These were awful and the only people who ever bought them were people having a big party. Women between 25-50 heading on a night out and children. Knockoff Alco Pops. Pound symbol 1.29. Only younger people ever tried to buy these. It was always safer just to it and less really obvious. Milkshake liquor 21%. £2.99. Disgusting as it sounds, I never ever served this to anyone who was obviously over 25, so it was always an odd job. These were the drinks every kid who ever come into the store would go for. They would take turns trying to get served and often this wasn't really an issue, as some of them got clever and tried to buy normal groceries as though they were adults just out shopping. They'd get such random things, but they'd usually pay for them even without the alcohol. One time one kid who had tried many times bought a lot of groceries, and then tried to put all the items back and get alcohol of an almost equal value, but slightly in the store's favor. When we caught him, we didn't know what to do as he was a kid. He hadn't technically stolen financially and it didn't seem malicious enough to get the police involved. So my manager had him call his mum and dad. He said it was either them or the police. He chose his dad, who looked like an addict, who on arrival seemed more bothered about the inconvenience of having to come and pick his son up, was more annoyed at us and instead tried to buy the alcohol for him. While this is technically illegal, we usually let it slide, but this time we outright refused using the law as grounds. Oh man, liquor store stories. Weekday night, so I'm flying solo. Kid rolls up in a Camaro, clearly 14 or 15 years old, leaves his also underage girlfriend in the car, struts in like he owns the place and starts browsing the aisles. I see him stuff 2/5 of Jim Beam down his pants in the mirrors. I lock the door and confront him as he tries to leave. He gets all bowed up but finally pulls the bottles out when I threaten to mop the floor with his head. I unlock the door and let him out. He goes to the car, reaches under the seat and pulls out a revolver and heads back for the door. I pull the shotgun from under the counter, set it on the counter, and hit the alarm. He stops when he sees the shotgun. His girlfriend is screaming at him and they yell at each other for a minute or two. He gets back in the car just in time for a police car to come screaming into the lot. He spends the next hour face down on the asphalt while the cops tear the car apart. The girlfriend is shoved into the back of the police car. The car was his dad's, so was the revolver. His dad literally dragged him in by the shirt collar the following Monday begging for forgiveness. He was charged and plead guilty, though it was plea down to something like assault. I don't know what happened to him after that. Runner up. These kids didn't actually try to get booze from our store, but told the cops they got it from us. It was a normal Saturday night winding down at about 11:45 PM when a Suburban goes flying through the intersection in front of the store at high speed, loses control, high sides on the guardrail and does a fly that any action movie director would have been proud of, flipping into the small creek beside the road, lands upside down. 3 kids get out and run for it. The last one is trapped inside. Fire trucks and cops show up. The cop comes in and says the kid they pried out of the Suburban told them we gave them the booze. We handed over 24 hours of surveillance tapes to prove they had never been in the store or the parking lot. Not a liquor store employee, but I was purchasing something at a liquor store. These 2 young women were checking out the same time as me and proceeded to have the following loud interaction. They try to pay. The cashier asks for it. The girl paying says she doesn't have any on her. The cashier is like, well, I needed a license, a passport, something. The girl says, well, I'm 19. ? We are in the US. The drinking age everywhere is 21. This is next level stupidity. Cashier says, now I really can't sell to you. Both girls are arguing with the cashier now, and the cashier is like, I'm not selling to you, and actually you aren't even supposed to be in this store. The girls say, people are shopping in here with their little kids, so why is that okay? The cashier says the kids are here with their parents and being supervised. The not 19-year-old says, well, I'm 23, sell it to me. Question mark? If you're 23, why did you try to have the 19-year-old check out? The cashier says, no, I can't because you've already made it known that it's for the 19-year-old. At this point, the girls devolve into full-on whining. Please, but we came here all the way from town 30 minutes away to pick this up for a family party. You guys are the only ones who have it. Please, please, please sell it to us. It's just for our family. They are going to be so disappointed if we don't bring it back. Please. It was so uncomfortable. When I left, they were still begging and pleading with the manager. 10-year-old boy walks up to the counter with a bottle of whiskey. I laugh and just say no. I'm thinking it's such a young kid that it had to be a lazy and or drunk parent sending their kid and thinking it's no big deal. No. Yeah. No. You're a small child. I can't sell you that. Here's my id. The 10-year-old boy was actually a 23-year-old woman. I did the rest of the transaction in silence. See, this is why my baby-faced self has my id in hand and ready to go the second I walk into liquor store or up to the counter of a regular store while carrying booze. I know I look like a 12-year-old boy, maybe a 16-year-old girl at best. Nope, 31-year-old man. Easiest to just head it all off from the get-go by going, here's my id, and handing it over. I used to work in a bottle shop attached to a supermarket, but this was a time when I was on a register in the supermarket. I saw a kid who I knew was 13 or 14 at most, but was very tall and looked older. I saw him walking into the bottle shop and tried to call my boss to let the bottle shop know the kid was underage. My supervisor chose to ignore me. I could see her talking to her friend. I could see people telling her that I was calling. She was too busy chatting to answer the phone. A few minutes later, I saw the kid walk out with a slab. He even said hello to me. Shortly afterwards, I had the opportunity to go to the bottle shop and ask if they carded the kid. Bottle shop. Yeah, he was from interstate's tourist destination. Me. No, he lives down the road. He is 13 years old. Bottle shop was peeved. Not sure what they wanted me to do. Bolt down the length of the checkouts while I was serving customers to tell on the kid? Probably not. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.